Hey guys, tonight we're diving into a tale from the ancient world, a little known, but absolutely wild story of how a giant rooster saved the Greek gods. Picture this, the gods of Mount Olympus, Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, all of them are facing a calamity so severe that their very existence is at risk. The thunder god is losing his grip on his sky. The sea god struggles to command the waves, and even the queen of the gods is starting to feel the weight of it all. Their divine powers are waning, their immortality threatened. Imagine being one of them, helplessly watching your strength fade, unable to do anything about it. You probably won't survive this one, at least not without a little help from the most unlikely hero you could ever imagine. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, feel free to let me know where you're listening from and what time it is. Curiosity keeps the journey interesting. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It begins with the gods. Picture them up there, high on their mountain, looking down at the world below. They're supposed to be invincible, ruling over nature, humans, and even the stars themselves. But as with all powerful beings, there are moments when even they fall. Some say it was a curse. Others claim it was an omen of the gods' own arrogance. Historians still argue whether the gods' fading powers were due to a shifting cosmic balance, or simply because they had taken their immortality for granted. Whatever the cause, something strange was happening. Their powers were starting to drain, and the very essence of the divine was slipping from their grasp. Zeus, who once controlled the skies with a mere flick of his hand, now struggles to summon a storm. Poseidon, who ruled the seas with unmatched fury, finds his trident less effective against the rising tides. And then there's Hera, whose strength lay in her commanding presence, now appearing slightly diminished in the face of this strange, creeping affliction. All eyes turn to the Oracle, a figure who has guided the gods through countless trials. In a rare moment of uncertainty, the Oracle speaks of a prophecy, a strange vision of a giant rooster. Yes, a rooster. The gods are skeptical at first, finding it hard to believe that a mere bird could restore their fading powers. But the Oracle insists that this rooster is the key to their salvation. And thus, the quest begins, though none of the gods know just how bizarre and dangerous this journey will become. The prophecy of the rooster comes to life during an unsettling dream. As Zeus drifts into a restless slumber on his celestial throne, a vision flashes before his eyes. A giant rooster, its feathers as golden as the sun and its eyes glowing with an ancient, mystical power, appears in a cloud of smoke. It stands in the middle of an endless field, surrounded by faint echoes of voices calling out from the shadows. The rooster's crow pierces through the darkness, so powerful that it shakes the very foundations of Mount Olympus. Zeus jolts awake, his heart pounding in his chest. His mind reels from the image. Could this bird really hold the power to restore what had been lost? At first, he dismisses the idea. After all, it's a bird. How could something so simple be the answer to their most dire predicament? Yet, something about the rooster's crow lingers in his mind. There's an undeniable urgency in it, as if the fate of the gods is directly tied to its presence. Poseidon, still struggling to keep his command over the seas, hears of the vision and is immediately intrigued. The idea of a mythical creature, so powerful that it could influence the very balance of the gods, sounds absurd yet appealing. After all, they had little else to go on. The gods begin to gather, each unsure of what this giant rooster might mean for them, but all knowing they have no other choice but to follow this strange lead. Historians still argue whether the prophecy was something that had been whispered among the gods for centuries, passed down from ancient times, or whether it was a completely new revelation, perhaps a result of the gods' own fears manifesting in their collective dreams. Either way, the search for the rooster begins in earnest. A meeting is held on Mount Olympus. where the gods discuss their next steps. Hera, ever. The strategist suggests sending their finest warriors on a quest to find this rooster, believing that it must be somewhere in the mortal realm. And so, a party is formed. A team of Olympian soldiers led by Heracles, the strongest and most respected of the gods' warriors, is tasked with finding the creature. But the gods' powers are fading, and Heracles is no longer the unbeatable hero he once was. He too feels the weight of his diminished strength. With a deep breath, he agrees to lead the mission, knowing full well that the stakes are higher than any battle he has fought before. The party sets off from Mount Olympus, each of them carrying a weight heavier than their armor. Heracles, normally a force of nature, now feels his strength slipping as he marches beside the gods' warriors, whose powers are equally diminished. Even Athena, the goddess of wisdom, is visibly frustrated, her keen intellect clouded by the same invisible force that haunts the others. Still, they march on, toward a destiny no one fully understands. As they travel through forests and across rugged mountain paths, the group encounters odd creatures, some familiar and others completely foreign to them. These beings are far from helpful, though many seem almost wary of the gods, perhaps sensing their weakened state. The first stop on their journey is a dense mist-covered forest, where rumors suggest the rooster might be hiding. Here, the air is thick with magic, and the warriors sense that something unseen watches them from the shadows. Historians still argue whether the gods were ever truly able to see the magic that enveloped them during this journey, or whether it was simply their fear of their own vulnerability that created the illusion. But as the group proceeds deeper into the mist, the tension grows. A massive figure suddenly appears in their path, half human, half animal. It's an ancient creature, one of the primordial beings that existed before the gods themselves. With eyes like burning coals, it demands they turn back. Heracles steps forward, trying to assert his usual dominance, but the creature laughs a deep, rumbling sound that shakes the ground beneath them. "You are not the gods you once were," it sneers. "You have lost your power, you cannot pass." But the gods are desperate. They need this rooster. They know the prophecy is their only hope, so Heracles challenges the creature to a duel, as is customary. The two combatants clash with thunderous force, but Heracles feels something is different. Each strike feels heavier, each movement slower. His divine strength is no longer what it used to be. The creature senses this change, its laughter growing louder, but something unexpected happens. As the battle rages on, the giant rooster, with its golden feathers glinting through the mist, appears in the distance, crowing once more this time. A sound so powerful it echoes across the land. The creature pauses mid-fight, its eyes widening. "The rooster," it whispers. "You seek the rooster? Then you must prove yourselves worthy." With those words, the creature vanishes, leaving Heracles and the warriors to wonder what exactly this ancient being meant by worthy. But they have no time to dwell on this, for the rooster is close now. They follow the sound of its crowing, knowing that this mythical creature holds the key to their salvation. As the gods and their warriors make their way through the dense fog, they grow more certain that the giant rooster is indeed real, and that it might hold the power they desperately need. They follow its calls, each crow sounding louder, more urgent, as if beckoning them forward. The mist begins to clear, revealing a vast, desolate plain that seems to stretch endlessly in every direction. The rooster's call seems to come from all directions, but there is no sign of the bird itself. Zeus, still uncertain but more desperate than ever, urges his warriors to keep moving. "We must find it," he says, his voice laced with the authority that once commanded the heavens, though now it feels slightly less certain. "We cannot fail." They march for what feels like hours, and just as the last sliver of sunlight disappears beyond the horizon, they spot a figure in the distance standing tall and proud. It's the rooster, and not just any rooster. This bird is the size of a Horse, its golden feathers shimmering like sunlight itself. Its eyes gleam with an ancient, otherworldly intelligence, as if it's been waiting for them all along. Heracles, ever the warrior, steps forward, his hands gripping his sword. "Ah, you the one foretold?" He calls out to the bird, but it does not respond in the way they expect. Instead, the rooster's wings flap once, sending a gust of wind that sweeps across the plain, rattling the trees and shaking the earth beneath their feet. Historians still argue whether the rooster's powers were truly magical or whether its mere presence was enough to restore the god's strength. Some suggest that the god's belief in the rooster's power amplified its effects, while others think the rooster was an ancient force that had been dormant for centuries, waiting for the right moment to awaken. Either way, the gods now stand before the giant bird, and they can feel something shifting in the air. Something ancient, something powerful. The rooster cocks its head, seemingly studying them. It takes a few steps forward, its beak glinting in the dying light. It is no ordinary animal, that much is clear. As it approaches, the air around it begins to hum with a strange energy. For the first time in what feels like ages, the gods feel a spark of their former strength. Zeus' hands crackle with static. Poseidon feels the waves inside him stir, and Hera's gaze sharpens with renewed clarity. "Do you understand the power you seek?" The rooster seems to ask, though its beak never moves. Heracles steps forward again, voice filled with reverence. "We understand. We need your help." The rooster's crow echoes one last time, louder than ever before. It is not a call. It is a command, and the very heavens seem to respond. The gods feel a wave of energy course through them, like a pulse of divine power. But is it enough? Can this mythical creature truly restore what they have lost? The answer, they know, lies in the rooster's next move. The moment the rooster's crow fades into the air, the ground beneath the gods trembles. The warriors stiffen, their senses heightened as the atmosphere shifts. They're no longer standing on a plain. It feels as though they've crossed into a different realm altogether. The land is no longer familiar, its terrain now a strange and otherworldly landscape. The earth itself seems to hum with an ancient rhythm, as though it's alive, breathing in sync with the divine forces at play. The rooster, its enormous form looming before them, steps forward once more. With each step, the air seems to shimmer around it, like heat rising off a summer road. But despite its size, there's something gentle in its movements. It's as if the bird knows that this is a moment of delicate power, not one to be wielded recklessly. The gods watch in awe, unsure of what to expect next. Historians still argue whether the gods were able to comprehend the full extent of the rooster's power, or whether they were simply caught up in the grandeur of the moment. Some say that the rooster was a manifestation of an ancient force beyond even the gods' understanding, while others suggest it was a kind of divine intervention, a gift that came only at the peak of their desperation. Whatever the case, the energy swirling around them is palpable, and the gods feel it seep into their very beings, like the first breath of a newborn world. Zeus, still somewhat skeptical but more desperate than ever, takes a step forward. "What must we do?" he asks, his voice softer than it's ever been. It's not the commanding tone he once used to shake the heavens, but a quiet, almost pleading question. The rooster's head cocks to one side, its eyes locking onto Zeus's with a piercing gaze. For a moment, everything is still so still that the gods can hear the heartbeat of the earth beneath them. Then, the rooster lets out a soft, low crow. It's not a call this time, but a sound filled with meaning. The gods, despite their confusion, instinctively know that it is a signal dot at that moment. The sky above them seems to crack open, revealing a vast expanse of stars. The stars shift and twirl, forming patterns that are both mesmerizing and incomprehensible. The universe itself feels in motion, like a great cosmic clockwork turning back in time. And in that instant, The gods are struck with a profound understanding. The rooster is not simply a magical creature. It is a guardian of time, a key holder of cosmic forces that the gods themselves cannot control. The rooster has the power to reset the balance, to return the gods to their rightful strength. But it's not a simple fix. The rooster's power requires a sacrifice, a price that must be paid for the gods to reclaim their lost might. Hera's expression hardens as she senses the weight of the decision that lies ahead. The gods are faced with a choice. Accept the rooster's aid and restore their power, but at what cost? Historians still debate the exact nature of the sacrifice. Some claim it was a personal cost that each god had to bear, while others suggest it was a collective sacrifice, a decision that would forever change the very essence of their existence. Whatever the truth, the gods now face a choice that will determine their future. Zeus turns to his fellow gods, his eyes meeting theirs. What do we do now? He asks, his voice filled with uncertainty. The rooster's crow echoes once more, and the gods know that their answer will shape the fate of the divine world. The silence that follows Zeus's question stretches on, heavy with the weight of uncertainty. Each god stands lost in thought, their once clear and unshakable confidence now muddied by the gravity of the choice before them. The rooster, still standing in front of them, continues to gaze at them with its penetrating eyes. Its golden feathers glow faintly in the fading twilight, a reminder of the ancient power it wields. But the air feels thick with hesitation, as though time itself is holding its breath. Hera is the first to break the silence. "A sacrifice," she says softly, the words weighing on her lips. "But what must we give?" The rooster is powerful, but it is not a free gift. There is always a price. Her voice, once commanding, now has a note of uncertainty in it. Even the queen of the gods cannot fathom what such a price might be. Historians still debate whether Hera was truly aware of the cost she was referring to, or whether it was merely a reflection of her own fear. Some believe she was speaking metaphorically, aware that every divine act comes with consequences. Others suggest that Hera, ever the strategist, had sensed that the price might be greater than anyone had anticipated, a toll that could change them all forever. Regardless, her words hang in the air like an unspoken warning. Poseidon, his brow furrowed in thought, steps forward. "It must be done," he declares, though his voice lacks the conviction it once carried. "We cannot allow ourselves to be weak forever. If the rooster holds the key to restoring our power, we must accept the cost." But Zeus is not so certain. And what if the cost is too much? He asks, his voice almost a whisper. "What if we are not meant to regain our strength in this way? There are forces beyond us, forces we may not understand." His words trail off, and for a brief moment, he appears vulnerable aside of the mighty god of thunder that the others rarely see. Athena, who has been silent until now, steps forward. Her sharp gaze sweeps over the group. "The rooster has chosen us," she says firmly. "We cannot back down now. Our power is gone, but we still have our purpose. The balance must be restored." Her words resonate with the group, and one by one, the gods nod in agreement. They are bound by their duty, and though the unknown looms ahead, they must act. The rooster's role in their fate is now clear, and the sacrifice, whatever it may be, will have to be accepted. But the gods are not prepared for what happens next. As they take their first steps toward the rooster, the world around them shifts. Once again, the stars above seem to swirl faster, and the ground beneath them trembles. The energy in the air intensifies, and the gods feel a surge of power, a force so strong it almost knocks them off their feet. Before they can fully comprehend what's happening, the rooster stretches its wings wide. A gust of wind blows through the land, sweeping the gods and their warriors off their feet. For a brief moment, they are weightless, suspended in the air, as if they are no longer bound to the earth. The rooster's crow, loud and commanding, fills the air once more. Then, just as quickly as it began, the wind fades. The gods are left standing on solid ground once again, but everything is changed. The energy that had surged through them now settles, and they feel the power of the rooster coursing through their veins. They are stronger than before, more powerful, more vibrant. But with this newfound strength comes a sense of unease. What have they truly gained, and at what cost? Historians still argue whether the gods ever fully understood the price they paid for the rooster's power. Some believe that the sacrifice was not a physical one, but something deeper, something that altered the very essence of their being. Others suggest that the rooster's gift was not a restoration of their power, but a transformation, one that set them on a path they could never have anticipated. Whatever the truth, the gods now stand before the rooster, their powers renewed, but their fate uncertain. The time for hesitation has passed. They must move forward, for the world still needs them. And the rooster, their strange savior, watches silently, its golden feathers glinting in the starlight, waiting for the next step in their journey. The world around the gods is eerily still, as though holding its breath in the wake of the rooster's power. They feel the weight of their newfound strength, and yet there is a deep sense of unease that lingers in the air. Each of them stands, silently contemplating what has just transpired. The rooster, its golden feathers glowing in the soft moonlight, remains calm, unmoved by the gods' shifting emotions. Its presence is both reassuring and unsettling, like a force of nature. Beyond their comprehension, as the gods begin to recover from the overwhelming surge of power, Heracles, the once indomitable hero, speaks first. "We are stronger now," he says, his voice heavy with the weight of the transformation. "But I feel different. This power is not the same as before. It feels more like a force we are borrowing, not one that belongs to us." Zeus, who has felt the greatest shift of all, looks up at the rooster. "I know what you mean, Heracles," he admits. "It's as if this strength has been given to us, but it comes with a weight we don't fully understand." Historians still debate whether the gods knew at that moment what the true cost of the rooster's power was. Some suggest that they understood instinctively that the power they now wielded was not a permanent fix, that they were living on borrowed time. Others argue that the gods were too consumed by their renewed strength to question its source. Either way, there was no turning back now. The gods had been changed, and the world around them was changing with them, with the rooster still standing before them, seemingly waiting for them to make their next move. The gods begin to discuss their next steps. They have regained their strength, but the world is not the same as it was before. The Titans, long dormant, are stirring once again. Strange creatures from the depths of the earth are beginning to emerge, threatening to disrupt the balance that the gods have worked so hard to maintain. The gods know that their power will be tested once again, and this time they cannot afford to fail. Hera, ever the strategist, is the first to speak. "We cannot simply sit back and allow the world to descend into chaos. We must act before the Titans reclaim their power." Poseidon, whose command over the seas has returned with force, nods in agreement. "The seas are already restless. The winds are changing. We must prepare for what is to come." Athena, her mind sharp as ever, looks toward the horizon. "The war is not just against the Titans," she says. "There are forces beyond even them that are stirring. We must be ready for everything." Zeus, now standing tall again, looks to each of them, his voice filled with the authority he had once commanded. "We have been given a second chance. We will not squander it. The Titans may rise, but so will we. We will fight to protect the world we created." But even as the gods speak of battle and strategy, a nagging doubt lingers in the back of their minds. The power they have gained from the rooster is undeniably immense, but it is not without its mysteries. They have been given a gift, but they are unsure whether it is truly a gift or a test. Is the Rooster, this strange and powerful being, leading them into a new era of strength, or is it guiding them toward an inevitable fall? The gods know that the coming battles will be unlike anything they have faced before. The rooster's crow echoes once more in the distance, a reminder that they are not alone in this struggle. But with each passing moment, the gods feel the weight of the sacrifice they have made, and they begin to question whether they are truly the masters of their own fate, or whether they are merely pawns in a greater cosmic game. Historians still argue whether the gods ever truly understood the consequences of their decisions. Some say that the rooster's gift came with a curse, a reminder that nothing comes without its price. Others believe that the gods, despite their doubts, were destined to rise again, no matter the cost. Whatever the truth, the gods now stand at the threshold of a new era, their power restored, but their future uncertain. The air grows thick with tension as the gods gather their forces, preparing for the battles ahead. Their minds are sharp, their bodies rejuvenated by the rooster's power, but beneath it all, the uneasy feeling of something being amiss gnaws at them. The rooster, still standing as a silent sentinel before them, remains as enigmatic as ever. Its golden feathers shimmer faintly in the soft light, but its eyes, gleaming with an ancient intelligence, betray no hint of what lies ahead. It is as if the bird, this strange cosmic entity, understands more about the road they must travel than any of the gods themselves. Zeus, with his renewed strength, takes the lead, his once mighty thunderbolts now crackling with a ferocity he thought lost forever. He looks out at the horizon, where dark clouds are beginning to gather. The forces of chaos are stirring, and the time for indecision is over. We fight for the world we created, Zeus declares, his voice firm. The Titans will not reclaim the earth. Not while we still breathe. But even as he speaks, his thoughts are clouded. What is the true cost of this power they have gained? Is this gift a blessing, or is it a trap? Historians still debate whether Zeus fully understood the price he had paid, or whether the rooster had simply given them what they needed to push forward. With little regard for what might come next, Hera, ever the strategist, steps beside her. Husband, her expression grim, we must be cautious. We have regained our strength, but we are not the only ones who have felt the shift. The Titans will not sit idly by. They are preparing for war, and they will not be easily defeated. Poseidon, who once ruled the oceans with an iron grip, feels the sea rise beneath his feet. His trident, now glowing with the power of the deep, pulses with energy. The seas are restless, he says. The Titans will come from all corners of the earth. We must prepare for battle, but we must also remember that we are not invincible. We have been given a gift, but it is not without its cost. The gods, once so certain of their power, now begin to feel the weight of their decisions. The rooster's gift has given them the strength to stand tall again, but it has also left them with more questions than answers. What is the cost of this power? What will it mean for their future? As they prepare for war, the gods realize that their greatest enemy may not be the Titans, but the uncertainty of what they have become. With each step they take, they feel the rooster's power coursing through them, but they also feel a sense of dread and awareness that the road ahead is fraught with peril. The power they have gained may be their salvation, but it could just as easily lead to their downfall. The winds begin to shift, and the gods feel the pull of the coming storm. They are no longer the rulers of the heavens and the earth. They are soldiers preparing for battle. The balance between power and sacrifice has been tipped, and only time will reveal whether the rooster's gift was truly a blessing or a curse. The first signs of the coming battle appear on the horizon, and the gods must act swiftly. The Titans are on the move, and the world that the gods have sworn to protect is now in jeopardy. Historians still argue whether the gods, in their moment of newfound strength, truly understood the full consequences of their actions. Some claim they were blinded by their desire for power, while others believe they were simply caught in the web of fate, unable to break free. Whatever the truth, the gods now stand on the precipice of war, their future uncertain, their power restored but fragile. The first clash with the Titans comes swiftly and without warning. As the gods ready themselves for battle, the earth beneath their feet trembles, and the sky darkens with the approach of their ancient foes. The Titans, massive primordial beings, born from the very foundations of the world, have long been dormant. But now, roused by the stirrings of power and the forces of nature that have been disturbed, they awaken with a fury that shakes the heavens themselves. Zeus, his thunderbolts, crackling in his hands, takes his place at the forefront of the gods' army. His eyes, once filled with uncertainty, are now ablaze with the fire of a leader ready to reclaim his throne. He raises his hand to the sky, and in an instant, a great storm erupts. Lightning forks across the sky, illuminating the darkened battlefield, and the roar of thunder fills the air like the sound of the gods themselves calling to war. Hera, standing beside him, watches the scene unfold with a mixture of determination and unease. "This is just the beginning," she murmurs, her voice steady despite the rising tension. "The Titans will come in full force, and we will need more than just power to defeat them. We will need strategy." Poseidon steps forward, his trident gleaming with the energy of the deep, and calls forth a massive wave from the ocean. The sea responds to his will, swelling into a towering wall of water that crashes down upon the Titans, knocking some of them off their feet. The gods' forces rally, emboldened by the tide of victory. But even as they strike, the Titans rise again, their strength seemingly undeterred. The battlefield is chaotic, god and Titan alike clashing with overwhelming force, each blow reverberating through the earth like the sound of 1,000 storms. Heracles, the once unstoppable warrior, charges into the fray, his fists pounding down upon the Titans, each strike a thunderous boom. But even as the gods fight with all their might, the doubts that linger in their minds remain. This power, this strength they have gained from the Rooster, is it enough? The Titans are relentless, their attacks shaking the very foundations of the world. The gods, despite their renewed strength, are pushed back, forced to retreat step by step. The battle rages on, with neither side willing to yield. In the midst of the chaos, Zeus catches a glimpse of the Rooster once more, perched high on a distant hill. Its golden feathers glint in the flickering light of the storm, and for a moment, Zeus feels a pang of doubt. Historians still argue whether the gods were ever truly able to defeat the Titans at this stage in the battle. Some suggest that the gods' strength, amplified by the Rooster's power, gave them an edge, while others claim that the gods' internal turmoil and uncertainty were their greatest weaknesses. But one thing is clear: the outcome of this battle will not be decided by power alone. The gods must find a way to unite, to focus their strength, or they will be consumed by the Titans' might. As the battle intensifies, the gods feel the weight of their decision to embrace the Rooster's power. It has restored them, yes, but it has also made them vulnerable. Their strength is borrowed, not truly their own, and they know that this borrowed power can only carry them so far. The Rooster's crow echoes in the distance, a reminder of the cost they have already paid. They must find a way to turn the tide, or they risk losing everything. The Titans, however, are not the only threat. In the distance, another, darker force stirs, one that the gods have yet to fully comprehend. It is as if the very fabric of the world itself is unraveling, and the gods are being dragged into a conflict that extends far beyond their own struggle. For power. As the battle rages on, Zeus faces a choice: continue to fight with the power of the Rooster, or risk losing everything by trying to reclaim their true strength. The gods must decide whether to accept the limits of their newfound abilities, or face an unknown fate that could shatter everything they have worked for. The battle with the Titans rages on. The earth trembles, the sky darkens, and the gods fight with all their might. but the sense of uncertainty never quite leaves them. The rooster's power, which once felt so empowering, now seems like a double-edged sword. The gods feel its strength surging through them, but they also feel something slipping, a quiet, persistent drain on their very essence. Their victory, if it comes, may be hollow. Zeus, standing at the front of the gods' army, can't shake the feeling that the power they've gained is not their own. His thunderbolts crackle in his hands, brighter and more intense than ever. But each time he throws them, he feels a flicker of unease, as if the energy he wields is slipping through his fingers. His once steady command over the sky is faltering, the clouds darkening above him with every passing moment. Hera, ever the strategist, notices it too. She stands tall, her eyes scanning the battlefield, calculating every move. "We are running out of time," she murmurs, her voice steady, though her concern is clear. "The Titans are relentless. We need to do more than just fight. We need to end this now, or we risk losing everything." Poseidon, who has been battling fiercely in the ocean's depths, emerges from the waves, his trident raised high. The sea swells behind him, its power undiminished. "The Titans may be strong," he says, "but they are not invincible. We have the power to stop them, but we must act as one. Alone, we are vulnerable. Together we stand a chance." Heracles, fighting with all the fury of his legendary strength, is the next to speak. "Then let's fight together, like we once did. Let's finish this." But even as he speaks, doubt creeps into his mind. The power they wield, this borrowed strength, is not enough. It is as though the very essence of their divinity is slipping away, replaced by something foreign, something that does not truly belong to them. The rooster's power is a gift, but it is a gift that comes with a price. The gods have been restored, yes, but at what cost? In the midst of the chaos, Zeus sees it, a flash of golden feathers in the distance. The rooster, standing, tall and unwavering, watching the battle unfold with an air of quiet wisdom. Its eyes gleam with a knowledge the gods can't fully comprehend. For a brief moment, Zeus wonders if the rooster has been guiding them all along, leading them into this conflict as part of some greater plan, one that they can't see yet. Historians still argue about the true nature of the rooster's involvement. Was it a benevolent guardian sent to restore the gods' power and guide them to victory? Or was it something more sinister, an ancient force that sought to use the gods for its own purposes, drawing them into a battle that they could not win? The truth remains unclear, but the gods are faced with the stark reality. They must either embrace the rooster's power and risk losing themselves entirely, or find a way to reclaim their true strength before it's too late. Zeus, feeling the weight of the decision bearing down on him, turns to the gods. "We must end this once and for all," he says, his voice resolute. "We cannot afford to let the Titans rise again. We must take back what is ours." But the gods are not the only ones who have been changed by the rooster's power. The Titans, too, have felt the shift in the balance of the world. As the gods push forward, they are met with a fierce resistance, as if the Titans themselves have gained new strength. The ground shakes as the battle intensifies, and the gods realize that this war is far from over. The cost of their power is becoming clearer with every strike. The gods now face their greatest challenge, not just defeating the Titans, but understanding the true nature of the power they wield. The rooster, once a symbol of salvation, is now an enigma. The gods must find a way to either fully embrace the power it has given them, or risk losing everything they have fought for. As the battle between the gods and the Titans reaches its peak, the very fabric of the world seems to warp. The gods are fighting valiantly, their powers rekindled by the rooster's mysterious gift. But they now realize something crucial. They are not the same gods they once were. The strength they wield, although vast, feels fragile like a borrowed energy, precarious and fleeting. Zeus, standing tall amidst the chaos, is starting to understand the cost of the Rooster's power. His once unstoppable thunderbolts now crackle erratically, their flashes less controlled. His confidence falters as the realization sinks in. The gods are fighting not just for survival, but for their very essence. If they lose this battle, the Rooster's power may slip away, and with it, their last chance at salvation. "Poseidon, Heracles," Zeus calls out. "We must stand together. We can't let the Titans break us apart." Poseidon nods, though there is a flicker of doubt in his eyes. His trident, once a symbol of his unshakable dominion over the seas, now seems to resonate with a strange energy, an energy that both empowers and drains him. The sea surges beneath his feet, but it does not feel as solid as it once did. Every wave that crashes against the Titans feels like a fleeting echo of the true power he once commanded. Heracles, charging into the fray, fights with the ferocity of a lion, but even he can sense the limitations of the power coursing through him. His punches land with devastating force, but there is something different in the air, a heaviness that slows his movements, dulls his edge. He feels the weight of the Rooster's gift pressing down on him, and he wonders, is this strength truly his, or is it something that, like the tides, will eventually recede? As the gods continue their battle against the Titans, they begin to understand that their fight is not just physical, it is a struggle to retain their true nature. The Rooster's power, while powerful, is not a permanent fix. It has restored their strength, yes, but at the cost of their autonomy. They have been given power, but they are no longer the masters of their own fate. The Rooster, with its enigmatic presence, has become both their savior and their shackle. Historians still debate whether the gods were aware of this when they accepted the Rooster's gift. Some argue that they were too blinded by their desperation to see the consequences. Others suggest that they knew, deep down, that the price of the power was more than they were willing to pay. Regardless, the gods are now faced with a difficult choice: continue to wield the Rooster's power and risk losing their true selves, or find a way to reclaim their autonomy before it's too late. Zeus, his eyes now heavy with the burden of leadership, turns to his fellow gods. "We must stop the Titans," he says. "But we must also stop ourselves from becoming what we are not." Heracles, breathing heavily from the intensity of the battle, steps forward. "How do we reclaim what we've lost?" he asks, his voice filled with uncertainty. "How do we break free from the Rooster's grip?" The Rooster, standing at the edge of the battlefield, watches silently, its golden feathers glowing softly in the twilight. It has not intervened, nor does it seem to show any intention of doing so. The gods, for the first time, realize that their struggle is not just against the Titans, but against their own dependence on the Rooster's power. It is then that Athena, ever the strategist, steps forward. "Perhaps the answer is not to fight the Rooster," she suggests. "Perhaps the answer is to accept the gift, but to use it wisely. We must learn to balance the power we have gained, not let it control us." Her words resonate with the gods, and for the first time in this battle, there is a shift in their thinking. The struggle is no longer just about defeating the Titans. It is about reclaiming their autonomy, finding a way to wield the power of the Rooster without losing themselves in the process. But time is running out. The Titans are closing in, their forces growing stronger by the minute. The gods must act swiftly, for the battle is far from over, and their future hangs in the balance. Historians still debate whether the gods ever truly understood the full extent of the power they had gained. Some believe that the gods never fully accepted the Rooster's gift, while others suggest that they came to terms with it, finding a way to coexist with the power they had been given. The truth remains unclear, but one thing is certain: the gods are facing their greatest challenge. Yet, and their ability to overcome it will determine not only their future, but the future of the world they created. The gods, now aware of the precariousness of their situation, find themselves at a crossroads. The Titans are closing in, their monstrous forms looming on the horizon, but the true challenge lies within themselves. The power they have gained. From the Rooster is immense, but it feels alien, something outside of them, a force they are struggling to control. Each god can feel it, the draining sensation, the subtle tug at the core of their divinity, as though the very essence of their being is being pulled by invisible strings. Zeus, standing amidst the chaos, his thunderbolts crackling in his hands, looks to his fellow gods. "We can defeat the Titans," he says, his voice steady, though the weight of his words is clear. "But we must do so on our terms, not the Rooster's. We must reclaim our power, not rely on what has been given to us." Hera, ever the strategist, nods. In agreement. "The Rooster gave us strength, but it did not give us wisdom," she says. "We must use our minds, our unity, to turn the tide of this battle. The Rooster is not our salvation, it is our test." Poseidon, his trident raised high, surveys the battlefield. The seas are in turmoil, churning beneath his feet, but he can feel the strain. His power, once so effortless, now feels like a heavy burden. He turns to the others. "We have the strength to defeat them," he says, his voice resonating with authority. "But we must work together. The Rooster has brought us to this point, but it is up to us to finish this." Heracles, bloodied and bruised from the relentless battle, steps forward, his fists clenched in determination. "I may have fought Titans before, but this is something different. We are not the same gods we were. This battle is not just about physical strength, it's about what we are willing to give up, and what we are willing to become." For the first time, the gods realize the full extent of their dilemma. They have been given immense power by the Rooster, but it has come at a cost. Their identity as gods, once clear and unassailable, is now muddied by their dependence on this foreign force. The question is no longer whether they can defeat the Titans. It is whether they can reclaim their true selves and find a way to wield the power they've been given, without losing everything that makes them who they are. The battle rages on, with the gods pushing forward, but the uncertainty weighs heavily on them. Each strike against the Titans feels like a step further away from their true nature, as though they are becoming something else, something less than what they once were. Historians still argue whether the gods ever truly understood the full cost of the Rooster's gift. Some believe that the gods were aware of the danger they faced and consciously chose to embrace the power, knowing the risks. Others suggest that they were simply too desperate to fully comprehend the consequences, blinded by the hope that the Rooster could restore them to their former glory. Either way, the gods must confront the truth. Their power is both a gift and a curse, and they must decide how to navigate it. The gods look to each other, their eyes filled with determination. This is no longer just a battle against the Titans. It is a battle for their very souls, a test of their ability to reclaim the divinity that was once theirs. They know they must fight together, but they also know that the battle for their true selves may be the most difficult one they will ever face. As they continue to battle the Titans, the Rooster watches silently, its golden feathers gleaming in the distance. The gods are no longer sure if it is their ally or their adversary, but one thing is certain: they cannot afford to fail. The price of their power is steep, and the road ahead is fraught with peril. But they are gods, immortal, powerful, and determined to reclaim their destiny. As the battle with the Titans rages on, the gods begin to understand that this war will not be won simply by strength alone. The Titans are relentless, their power ancient and primal, but the gods have something the Titans do not: the gift of wisdom, strategy, and unity, if they can find a way to harness it. The Rooster's power has given them strength, but it has also introduced a new complexity, something that unsettles them deeply. They are no longer the gods they once were. And this battle is as much about reclaiming their essence as it is about defeating their foes. Zeus, ever the leader, stands at the forefront of the gods' forces. His thunderbolts, once crackling with certainty and power, now flicker and waver as though struggling to maintain their divine energy. Despite this, he holds his ground, his gaze steely with resolve. "We fight for more than victory," he declares. "We fight to preserve who we are, what we were meant to be. We are not just weapons of destruction. We are gods of wisdom, of balance. We must reclaim that." His words resonate deeply with the others, and for a moment, the battlefield stills as each god processes the enormity of their struggle. They have come to a realization. Their fight is not merely against the Titans, but against the influence of the Rooster's power over them. The Rooster, while a powerful force, has made them dependent, and they must break free from this bond in order to fully reclaim their place in the world. Poseidon, whose once immense control over the oceans has felt more tenuous since they embraced the Rooster's gift, lowers his trident for a moment. He looks toward the distant horizon, the sea crashing restlessly against the shore. "We have been given power," he says softly, "but power is only as strong as the will behind it. The Titans have no choice but to obey their nature. We, however, must choose our path." Athena, who has been quietly observing the battle, steps forward, her sharp mind processing the situation with precision. "Poseidon is right," she agrees. "We must use our minds, not just our strength. The Rooster gave us the power to fight, but it did not give us the clarity of purpose we need. That is something we must find within ourselves." Heracles, bruised and exhausted, clenches his fists. "Then let's find it," he growls. "We fight, not as gods who depend on borrowed power, but as gods who are still capable of shaping the world. The gods unite, drawing strength from each other and the realization that they are not defined by the gift of power they've received. Their true strength lies in their ability to choose their path, to remain true to themselves, no matter how great the temptation to rely on something external. They begin to fight with renewed purpose, their attacks more precise, their movements more synchronized. But just as the tide begins to turn, the ground beneath them shakes violently. The Titans, sensing the shift in the gods' resolve, become more aggressive. Their ancient strength is overwhelming, and for a moment, it seems as though the gods may falter once again. Then, in the distance, the gods hear a sound, a deep, resonant crow, far more powerful than any they've heard before. The Rooster, standing alone on a hill, seems to have summoned the very forces of nature to its side. Its golden feathers shine brightly, and its eyes gleam with an ancient wisdom. The crow echoes through the battlefield, rattling the gods' very core, reminding them of the power they hold, both the power of the Rooster and the power within themselves. Zeus, with a flicker of understanding, looks at the Rooster. "This is our final test," he says quietly. "We must accept that our power is not merely what we take, but what we give. This battle is not just for the gods, it is for the balance of the world, and we must find the strength to restore that balance." With these words, the gods make their final push, rallying their forces with a renewed sense of purpose. The battle, though fierce, is now an act of reclaiming their true identities, fighting not just for victory, but for the soul of their divinity. As they stand together, the Rooster's presence becomes a guide, not a master. They will fight on their terms, not as pawns of a greater force, but as gods in their own right, determined to restore balance to the world. The Titans are relentless, but the gods are resolute. The sky crackles with energy as the final battle unfolds, and the gods realize that, in the end, it is not just the Rooster's power that will decide the outcome. It is their ability to wield their true nature, to remain true to their identity in the face of overwhelming odds. Historians still debate whether the gods ever fully understood the weight of their choices. Some say they embraced their fate with dignity, choosing to fight not just for themselves, but for the world they had created. Others suggest that the gods, in their desperation, were merely pawns in the greater cosmic game, their power always destined to be fleeting. But the truth, as always, remains elusive. What is clear, however, is that the gods did not fight alone. Each of them was guided by a force that transcended their own understanding. And it was this unity, this reclaiming of self, that ultimately brought them victory. The gods press on, their movements now more deliberate, their attacks sharper. They have regained their sense of unity, and with it, their confidence. Each of them, from Zeus to Heracles, from Poseidon to Athena, feels the familiar surge of power. Returning, but it's different now. Their strength no longer feels like a borrowed force. It feels like their own. The rooster's crow still echoes in the distance, but it no longer holds sway over them. It has given them a glimpse of what they could be, but now they are choosing their own path. The Titans, sensing this shift in the gods' resolve, begin to falter. They are powerful, ancient beings, but they are also creatures of instinct, bound to their ancient nature. The gods, on the other hand, have learned to adapt, to evolve, and it is this ability that gives them the edge. They have learned to fight, not just with brute force, but with wisdom, strategy, and unity. The battle becomes a dance, one that moves in rhythm with the forces of nature. Zeus summons a thunderstorm, his lightning bolts striking with pinpoint accuracy. Poseidon commands the waves, sending great surges of water crashing against the Titans. Hera, her mind sharper than ever, directs the gods' forces with a precision that surprises even the mighty Titans. Athena, ever the tactician, reads the battlefield with clarity, anticipating the Titans' next moves and countering them with elegant strategy. Heracles, though exhausted, fights with a renewed sense of purpose. The weariness in his muscles is replaced by a deep understanding of the power he has gained, not just from the rooster, but from his own resilience. He lands blow after blow, his strength now guided by wisdom rather than desperation. As the battle progresses, it becomes clear that the gods are winning. The Titans, once so mighty, are being pushed back, their forces diminishing. But even as victory seems within their grasp, the gods know that this battle is not just about defeating their enemies, it's about reclaiming their place in the world. The rooster's power, though vital, is no longer the central force in their fight. They have learned to rely on their own strengths, their own identities, and it is this shift that ultimately gives them the upper hand. As the final Titan falls, the gods stand victorious, but their expressions are somber. The cost of this victory has been great. They have fought not just against the Titans, but against themselves, against the temptation to rely on an external force, against the fear that they were no longer the gods they once were. But now, as they stand on the battlefield, their power fully restored, they realize that they have been reborn. They are not the same gods they were before, but they are stronger, wiser, and more united than ever. Historians still debate the true meaning of this battle. Some believe that the gods' victory was the result of their newfound strength, granted by the rooster. Others argue that it was their ability to adapt, to embrace their true selves, that made the difference. The truth, as always, lies somewhere in between. But one thing is certain. The gods have emerged from this battle changed, and they know that the world they rule is not the same as it was before. Zeus, standing tall once again, looks around at his fellow gods. "We have won," he says, his voice steady, but his eyes betraying the weight of what they've just experienced. But we are not the same. We are stronger, yes, but we are also wiser. And we must remember that. Hera steps forward, her gaze fierce, yet thoughtful. "We have been given a gift," she says, "but we must never forget the cost. The power we wield is not ours to take for granted." Poseidon, his trident still glowing with the energy of the deep, nods. "We must learn to wield it wisely, and to never lose sight of what truly makes us gods." Athena, ever the scholar, adds, "Our power is not just in our strength, but in our unity and our wisdom. Let us use it to protect the balance of the world." Heracles, breathing heavily from the battle, looks out at the horizon. "We may have won today," he says, "but the world is always changing, we must be ready for whatever comes next. And with that, the gods turn their gaze to the future, knowing that their journey is far from over. The rooster's crow still echoes in their minds, a reminder of the power they once borrowed and the strength they found within themselves. The balance of the world has been restored, but the gods know that their greatest challenge lies ahead, learning to rule wisely, to protect the balance, and to embrace the wisdom that comes with true power. Historians still wonder what became of the rooster. Some say it faded into the stars, its role in the gods' lives complete. Others claim that it continues to watch over them, a silent guardian in the background of their existence. But for the gods, it no longer matters. They have found their strength, their unity, and their purpose, and with that, they are ready for whatever comes next. The battle over, the gods stand at the precipice of a new era. The world around them is still, almost as if holding its breath, awaiting the moment when the last echoes of conflict fade away. Their victory is not just one of physical force, but of self-realization. They have faced their darkest fears of losing their power, their identity, and their place in the universe, and emerged stronger, more unified, and more aware of the delicate balance between power and humility. As they gather on the battlefield, each of them knows that their journey is far from over. The battle with the Titans may have been won, but the real work is just beginning. They must now rebuild, not just their realm, but themselves. For though they are gods, they are also flawed beings, and the struggle for balance is one they will never stop fighting. Zeus, who has led them through the storm, stands tall but weary. The thunderbolts in his hands no longer crackle with the same ferocity as before. His power, while restored, is tempered by the lessons he has learned. "We have come through this together," he says, his voice softer than it once was. "But we must never forget that our power is not our own. It is a gift, a responsibility. We must use it wisely." Hera, standing beside him, nods solemnly. "The world we rule is fragile," she says. "And it is not just our strength that defines us, it is our wisdom, our compassion, our ability to grow." Poseidon, whose command over the seas has been restored, looks out at the horizon. "The seas are always changing," he says, "and so must we. Power, like the waves, ebbs and flows. We must learn to ride those tides without losing ourselves." Athena, always the philosopher, steps forward. "This battle has taught us many things, but perhaps the most important lesson is that true strength lies not in our power, but in our ability to change, to adapt, and to understand our place in the world." Heracles, bruised but resolute, clenches his fists one last time. "We fought for this," he says, his voice raw but strong. "But it's not just about fighting. It's about knowing when to fight, when to let go, and when to lead." The gods stand together, their figures silhouetted against the fading light of the setting sun. The winds have settled, and the earth beneath their feet feels steady once again. The battle with the Titans is over, but the true test is just beginning. Historians still argue whether the gods ever fully understood the consequences of the rooster's power. Some believe they learned to wield it wisely, while others suggest that they continued to struggle with its influence long after the battle was won. The truth, as always, is elusive. But what is clear is that the gods have emerged from this conflict changed, transformed by the challenges they faced and the lessons they learned. As the final rays of the sun dip below the horizon, the gods look to the future. They have been given a second chance, a new beginning, and they know that the world will always be in flux. Their power, though vast, will always come with its challenges. But they are no longer the same gods they once were. They have faced their doubts, their fears, and their enemies, and they have come out stronger for it. Now, with the world at peace for now, they return to Mount Olympus, where their work continues. The rooster's role in their story may have ended, but its legacy remains. The gods, having learned to wield their power with humility and wisdom, are ready for whatever comes next. And though the future is uncertain, they are no longer afraid. They know that together, they can face anything that the world throws their way. With a final glance at each other, the gods step forward, ready to embrace the dawn of a new era. And as they disappear into the distance, the stars above twinkle, as though acknowledging the hard-won peace below.